Are we on? Can you all hear me? Okay, well, it is 7, so we are going to go ahead and begin the evening's festivities. Are we live, Keith? Are we ready to go? All right, well, welcome, hello, and thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us, both those of you who are online and everyone who is here in person. My name is Jen Lynn. I'm the director of LiTFUSE, poetry program of Tieton Arts Humanities. Welcome to FUEL, LiTFUSE's monthly poetry reading series. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, FUEL is free, a free event offered to you by many donors and volunteers. And there's many of us who believe in just the power of poetry, the expression and appreciation of the arts, and of course, focusing on poetry, but as vital to individuals and communities. Before we start, I do want to acknowledge that Tieton Arts and Humanities resides on the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Confederated Tribes and Bands of the Yakima Nation. Tieton Arts and Humanities values all relationships that reinforce our commitment to art as a powerful tool for equity and diversity. In recognizing the history and respecting the sovereignty of Washington's Indian nations, Tieton Arts and Humanities recognizes and honors these first people and their significant role today in stewarding these lands as they continue to honor and uphold their ancient heritage. I'd like to thank our staff and board members and volunteers who are here with us tonight, helping make this magic happen. Thank you, Lauren M. Brock. Thank you, Keith Elholm, and of course, thank you, Jen Elholm, for providing this delicious food for us tonight. Yes. We're also thankful for the financial contributions of our many donors that make it possible to make this a free event. Poetry Foundation, Humanities Washington, National Endowment for the Humanities, Washington State Arts Commission, National Endowment for the Arts, Fresh Hop Ale Festival, Yakima Chief Hops, Discurin Foundation, Yakima Valley Community Foundation, Inklings Bookstore, Fiesta Foods, and Yakima Coffee House Poets, and many other private donors. While FUEL's a free event, I do encourage those of you who do have means to consider donating money, time, resources, or even sponsoring an element as Jen does with food. We would really like to ensure the longevity of this program because we really do believe that poetry is for everyone. I love the quote by Pablo Neruda, poetry is like bread, it should be shared by all, by scholars and by peasants, by all our vast, incredible, extraordinary family of humanity. A couple just logistic things. Bathroom is outside, around the corner, old gas station bathroom. We prefer that you use the outside entrance just to keep this room clear. But make sure both doors are locked. And then after the reading, we will have an opportunity for a Q&A that Dayna has willingly said she's open to. So as she shares her poetry, if questions come up about content or craft or anything poetry related that you would like to know, she is open to those questions. So please be thinking of those for her. And then we also we'll have a short break when Dayna's done with us, and we will have an open mic. So if you have not had a chance to sign up, there is a sign-up sheet out in the other room. We'd love to hear your poems, whether it's something you've written or just something that you love that you would like to share with everyone. And so finally, let's get to it. And I'd like to introduce you to Dayna Patterson, our featured poet. Dayna is a photographer, textile artist, and irreverent bardophile. She is the author of Just Came Out, hot off the press, Oh Lady Speak Again, and If Mother Braids, a Waterfall from Signature Books in 2020. Honors include the Association for Mormon Letters Poetry Award and the 2019 #Dignity Not Detention Poetry Prize, judged by Ilya Kaminsky. Her creative work has appeared in Echo Theo, Kenyon Review, and Poetry. She is the founding editor, now emerita, of Psaltery and Lyre, the co-editor of Dove Song, Heavenly Mother in Mormon Poetry, She lives with her husband and 2 daughters in a little patch of enchanted forest in the Pacific Northwest. Can we all please welcome Dayna Patterson?
Oh my goodness, thank you so much for having me, Jen. Thank you for welcoming me. I sent Jen an email. I'm like, hey, I'm a poet in Bellingham. I just had a book come out. Do you want to have me come down and share poetry? And she responded with such a gracious invitation to be here, and I'm really excited. This is the first time that I'm reading from the book because it came out last week. Yeah, it's my brand new book, baby. It was rejected 55 times. I wrote it during my Master of Fine Arts in Creative Writing at Western Washington University, which finished in 2017, and I submitted it and submitted it and submitted it, and was about ready to give up on it when the publisher who published my first book, Signature Books, offered to take it with some arm twisting. So here we are, but I'm so happy with it. They did a beautiful, I think it's really pretty. They did these beautiful section breaks. It's a mashup of my faith journey through and out of Mormonism, as well as Shakespeare. So it's a strange book, but I love it. And it does have 5 sections, like a 5-act play. And it's got these beautiful section breaks that the book designer put in there that look like the cover. And I'm just like, oh, it's Who's the publisher? Signature Books. They publish esoteric Mormon literature. So yeah, maybe find your press, find poetry books that you love, and seek out that little press that might support you. And they've been very supportive of me. So I'm going to read from O Lady, Speak Again. The title comes from Othello, just after Othello has murdered Desdemona by suffocating her. She comes back to life for a sec and starts speaking, and her lady-in-waiting, Emilia, says, "Oh, lady, speak again," like invoking her to continue to speak even though she has died. So like a good Shakespearean play, this book begins with a dramatis personae, a list of a poem that is an introduction, but also kind of listing the characters that you'll meet here. Can everybody hear me okay? Yeah, this is a cozy space. I love the candles. I love the lights. It's just very cozy. Dramatis personae. Miranda, Cordelia, Ophelia, Isabella. O lady, speak again. Hermione and Perdita, Jessica and Portia, Viola and Olivia, Desdemona. O lady, speak again. Lady Macbeth and the 3 witches, Paulina, Juliet and her nurse, Titania, Mistress Page and Mistress Ford, Rosalind. O lady, speak again. Speak, from Latin spargere, to sprinkle, to scatter. Parched in dry earth, speak again. The first time partial, unquenching. Sprinkle, scatter, a blue deluge. Stepping over the threshold of silence, divide self into selves. Braid my stories into theirs. Stories rooted in Mormon soil, in the desert of Deseret. Stories of being raised in a motherless house, launching toward horizon's gray smudge. Stories of the underdog spell song, its fluid music speaking. O lady, speak again. Replace end with and. Amend, upend, augment, reinvent, retell, unveil, expound, expatiate, chide, upbraid, sound off, and sound deep. Hail and hold, spout and spiel and speak. So that's the little intro. Oh, thank you. In this version, Romeo doesn't drink the apothecary's poison, and Juliet awakens in his arms. They ride horseback to Mantua and have 7 kids, hyphenate their surnames, Montague Capulet. Hamlet checks behind the hangings, sword sheathed, and Ophelia doesn't drown in the glassy brook, but goes to a women's college, studies botany. Fratricidal Uncle King, guilt-gutted, offs himself. In this version, Lear doesn't banish his 3rd girl, and Cordelia cares for him in 2nd childhood, spooning mashed turnip to his lips when teeth fail, cradles his head as he slips into void. Othello suspects his suspicions, suffocates his doubts, crushes the spine of Iago's lie, loosens the villain's tongue so he finally explains, and Desdemona bears cinnamon twins. The nursling lives, and Lady Macbeth, Thane's wife, is queenly but not queen, is content with legacy, only night walking to hush her infant's teething, only brewing wild poppy and milk for its gums. In this version, I chase away my mother's blue beasts, concoct a strong spell to keep her from breaking out of my childhood. Later, when I break from my father's faith, fissures don't shift to ravines. Leontes believes Hermione, or better yet, he never succumbs to morbid jealousy. Therefore, their Perdita grows up like a song, her mother's face familiar as sun on her skin. This is a poem that exists because my poetry mentor at Western was like, how about you write a poem about Cordelia in King Lear, who's the 3rd daughter of King Lear, but make her a polygamous wife. And I'm like, okay. So this poem exists because of Bruce Beasley. Thank you, Bruce. This poem, Self-Portrait as Cordelia, Mormon Polygamous Wife, is a little bit of me and a little bit of my ancestor who was married to a polygamist, Charles Ramsden Bailey. He had 3 wives, Hannah, Joanna, and Susanna. He married the first 2 on the same day, Susanna and Joanna. Can you imagine? Just try to say that. Susanna, Joanna, Hannah. Susanna, Joanna, Hannah. Anyway, so this is from his journals, this little epigraph. He said, "And I say, if plural marriage or celestial marriage is not true, then Mormonism is all a hoax." And another epigraph for the same poem from King Lear. "Meantime, we shall express our darker purpose. Know that we have divided in 3 our kingdom. 1. Delia, he calls me, as if his mouth were too full of names to twine the full of mine around his tongue. We are trefoil clover, latched to the same stem, fixing nitrogen, converting it to the stuff of life. But now I've become the tearaway leaf, far from my husband's affection. 3rd, the put-away wife, distant as rooster from roasted hen. He used to hold me close, proud of my lace, my waves of lavender-scented hair, the crisp of my bun and starched linens, the way I can make a meal of a willow branch, boiled pigweed and thistle greens, corn cake, or a skillet of sego lily bulbs, the way I churn out sun after sun like pads of stamped butter with his milky impression. 2. Then my niggling questions surfaced. Why Father, Son, Spirit, a male-only guild for a godhead? And is Father the great polygamist with many goddess wives? And why not prophetesses in Zion, Miriams and Deborahs and Annas? I let slip from the pantry the mouse of my doubts, let its warm brown scurry into the open, and find myself shelved, long languishing in a rough valley. Chicory and bitter herbs grow in my garden, parched under desert sun. Come harvest, I'll glean grain enough to sell, sew a dress of linsey woolsey, dye the cloth with rabbit brush for yellow, then indigo for a summer green to reap again his gaze. Or maybe I'll begin with madder and a mordant, less likely to fade. 3. He frequents first wife now, enlarged her log house with an upstairs room. I who care for him know she's low burning coal in a brazier about to spill, a hearth flame without a screen, embers and ash wafting in the updraft. What she touches, she incinerates. Second wife's a cowhide copy branded with first wife's spite. I didn't swallow in marrying him, I'd sister wife them. Both have that glib and oily art of Pharisees, all whited sepulchres with rotting bones beneath. I may as well be in another country, far from his favor and broken faith. Love and be silent. I expect we'll still, all of us, share a grave. They do, my ancestor, Charles Ramsden Bailey, and he's got this giant obelisk type thing over his grave, and then there's 3 little headstones for his 3 little wives. I know, it's very sad. This next poem is called "Oh is the Sound of Tragedy," which is a line I plucked from the mouth of my Shakespeare professor. We were talking about King Lear, and I was noticing this passage, all these "oh" sounds as he's going mad, and blow winds and crack your cheeks, rage, blow. I'm like, so many "oh" sounds. And she said, well, "oh" is the sound of tragedy. That's the sound you make. And I was like, steal. So this poem is called "Oh is the Sound of Tragedy." Oh, as in Romeo's doomed romance, as in Juliet's hopeless wound. Oh, for the little moan in Desdemona, Alpha and Omega of Othello, Nous at the end of Iago. As the coward in Antony, whose autodestruct proved too slow. Oh, of Cleopatra's poison, the coiled asp of her final show. As in Lear's blow winds and crack your cheeks, rage, blow. His crawl toward old, oh, as in woe, open mouth circle, hole in our faces, exit of groans, flow where flies or food may go. My mother's float, my father's snow, my faith in the whole, holy, holy broke. Oh, for the gone in Goneril, oh, as in go, run, revoke the order for Cordelia's, oh no. Oh, for the double O's of Gloucester's eyes, the twin O's in look, which he can't because O is for out, vile jelly. Oh, as in mold, fold, follow, folly, fall into nothing, no thing to zero. Oh, as in globe, rotundity of the world, loaded with the O of sorrow. Oh, probes and prones, look, 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 to see so much and know. O says, no, no, no life, no breath, no more. Ghost, poor fool, undo. O for ambition's goad, for the smoke of Macbeth's unholy goal. O for Ophelia drowned, for Hamlet's lost crown, his dying throes, his oh, I die, Horatio, his oh, 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 oh. So many O's. I didn't realize Hamlet dies with 4 O's. That seems excessive, but O is the sound of tragedy. So I tried to write from lots of different characters from Shakespeare as a kind of persona, a sort of protection as I'm trying to get close to topics that are uncomfortable or feel dangerous or scary. The persona can add a kind of a protective layer and allow you to get close. A character that I found kind of surprising that I identify with is Isabella from Measure for Measure, who's training to be a nun. So my pre-faith crisis self resonates with Isabella and her desire to be good. Yes, her brother's in prison. Yes, he's going to die. She's not going to, anyway. Just her single-minded desire for goodness, to be good, resonated for me. This is self-portrait as Isabella in Theophilic Ecstasy. I want warm convent caress, more bead fingers. I want chaplet thwacking my thigh. I want the lash of Christ love, more. Give, and it shall be given unto you, good measure, pressed down and shaken together, and running over shall men give into your bosom. The veil between us torn, I want a pedestal, a petal, a peal, cherubim wings aflutter, more. Bell me, Christ the clapper, beat, ring a 3 hours campanology, my fields ablaze, I want surrender. Straight is the gate and narrow is the way, white fruit, luminous fruit, fire fruit, expurgate my vial, till I'm a crisp, clean, ironed Sabbath day, virtue polished, for with the same measure, seraphim scented, that ye meet withal, holiness washed and combed, it shall be measured to you again. I want fingers closing from above me, polish this thurible, incense smoke, vesper vapor rising from rose garland to thorn crown, from bride's white to Saint Clare's brown, an armful of early hours, pink, rose, white, a bed of light. Thank you. How are we doing? Okay. I'm going to take just a tiny break from this book. I'm going to come back. I love you. I'm going to read through my poems. Anyway, I thought because it's February and it's chilly, I would read a February poem from a manuscript in progress. So far, only 5 rejections on that one. So still early. We're still early. I think partly because I was raised as a Mormon, the first 30 years of my life, with a very patriarchal religion, with a very male-centered Godhead. I'm very interested in the feminine divine. And part of my spiritual journey now has been exploring that. And partly because my mom left when I was very young, and I was raised by my dad and stepmom. So I have this mother craving that won't go away, and probably never will, and that's fine. So this is Our Lady of Snowforts. Lady of February, of frozen light, of time siphoned into crystalline brightness. As mother to mother, thank you for snow-mortared snow, my children laboring in your winter tabernacle, for packed white bricks, 1 layer, then 3, then 6 deep, each brick stacked and locked in place, for the sparkling eyes and runny noses of your disciples, the pile of shed shells and wet gloves. Thank you. Their breath, steam, scarves, wrapped faces. How they huddle over an ice block table, chapped hands cupping sandwiches, plain PB&J that you, lady of luminous grains, change to ambrosia. Thank you. For dogs brushing heels that become Arctic wolves scouting their hunting grounds. Blue jays and finches, fillers in for buntings, Jaegers, terns. Thank you. Bless the neighborhood mother you send as scourge to tell off a bully, his wrecking ball fists. Bless the bully, those fists. Let the hoarfrost fall from his eyes that he may behold the fort's holiness. Make of his hands trowels, pulleys. Bless your fervent followers, 1 more layer, 1 more brick, working till purple-gray dusk, till dark, till the silver bells of winter stars ring them home. How they wish for canceled school, another day in your paradise of ice, paradise, time enough to roof the igloo, after warm soup and a hot bath, for the benison of ruddy cheeks, your cold burn kiss pressed to cool linen. Thank you. Hopeful, devoted, they'll dream your snow-pillowed heaven, dream you shaking out your down on our town's sleepy streets. February poem. I'm super excited for the open mic. I'm very excited to hear what you all are going to share. I'm going to end with 3 more poems from the book. This is Juliet Ode, and this poem was one of the hardest poems that I wrote for this book. It took years and years, revisions and revisions, and finally, this is my husband, Charles, when our kids reach the age that Juliet is in the play, when the play opens, she's almost 14. She's 2 weeks away from turning 14. Some things clicked for me. I was like, okay, I have an angle into this story now. Juliet Ode. Your bronze statues damaged from all the tourists who rub abreast for luck. In Verona, at the Casa di Giulietta, it grows holes, burnished from the friction of so many hands. Holy girl, mauled flower. In high school, I fell a little in love with Olivia Hussey. Her fiery green eyes, her feistiness, the 2-second flash of her breasts across the screen, which the teacher tried to cover too late with a poster. Whirligig girl, 13ing through a country of volcanoes and smoke. Now that my own daughter is your age, just shy of a sonnet, a well of secrets, I confess I hate the story you're caged in. You marry after a day's acquaintance, sweep aside Romeo's manslaughter, embrace his nightshade. A few acts later, you slide his knife into your chest, make of your body a sheath. I want to rage at your creator. Dear puppet, let's be honest, he's pulled your strings all along. I want to travel back in time, say 13 is still a child. A child. Bambina, signorina, little rose window flushed scarlet, sun smatter blushing your pains. Did you know Olivia was 16 when she played you? Too young to be flashing anything, but the director nicknamed her Boobsamina, hollered it in front of the crew, cajoled her into shooting the bedroom scene topless. Oh, Shakespeare. Oh, Zeffirelli. A plague on both your houses. Oh, patriarchy. For my daughter's sake, for every girl's sake, I want to cut these strings. Resurrected dame, new-made Montague, the bright pool of you pooling on a dagger's edge, incarnadine, staining mausoleum stone. For every lovesick kid who feels trapped in their narrative, I want a new ending. In Spain, there's a version of your story no one remembers, where the complex knots of the plot come undone. Priest's missive received. Romeo arrives in time, and you shame feuding parents to repentance. I love to imagine you grown, even graying. Here you stand on a different balcony, brushing, oiling, braiding thick coils of your daughter's hair into a crown before you descend together, arm in arm, into the garden to see what pushes up through soil, what opens in the sun. Musk rose, lily, woodbine, what has been allowed to bloom. So after I was finally happy with that poem, I'm like, oh, done. I read that Christopher Marlowe's sister died in childbirth when she was 13. So, I don't know. But in Shakespeare's sources, Juliet was 18 and 16. So he made that choice. He made a choice to make her that young, which, anyway, conflicted feelings. All right. One of the characters that was hard to get at in this book is Lady Macbeth. She goads her husband into murdering the king. But an angle that I found where I could write with some sympathy for her is that there's intimations that she had a child at some point, but the child isn't anywhere in the play. So you can assume that she lost the child very young, or children very young, maybe in childbirth. And I wrestled with infertility for years, and so there's a scene in the play where she's washing her hands, trying to get rid of the blood, and can't. So this is playing with some of those ideas. This is red-handed. Chopping beets for borscht, my daughter, do I look like a murderer? Shoves her ruddied hands in my face. I pull one of her hairs from my mouth, dyed red from beet juice, swirling in my bowl. Gold beads of chicken fat in the broth, her hair in my mouth with cabbages and carrots reminding me who made this meal, this sustenance, this girl I grew from my beet red womb, after pills, procedures, vials of blood, the hysterosalpingogram when dye bloomed from each fallopian tube, a poisonous flower spelling dead end. Each month, its petals shed bright drops in the shower, scrawling failure. How she sustains me hour to hour. A beet is not a tuber, but a taproot that grows heart-shaped. She at 7 weeks, 7 millimeters, no bigger than a bean. Her pinhead heart flaring on screen, a bright jolt. A beet's rich scarlet derives from pigments called betalains, and I a kind of accomplice to the crime called mother, as in my body gutted, and the I was became carcass. Who else can I call murderer, but she made me host and hostage. A beet seed is tiny as a grain of sand. It grows round and bulbous in the dark. I went willingly, but witness, she was red-handed from the start, guilty. When I ousted her, the evidence plain to see. Her flailing on my chest, her hands, small blades, cut open the blue veins of sky. The sun bled and bled, crimson-streaked her hands. Vernix creased, her hands chopped the air as if to say, all of this, all of it. There's only one play by Shakespeare that I know of that has an epilogue that is delivered by a woman, and that is As You Like It, and Rosalind gets the epilogue. So of course she has the epilogue in my book, of course she does. So I'll close with this poem, Epilogue, Rosalind with topophilia and heresy. Topophilia is love of place love. I love the Pacific Northwest, so you're gonna hear that in here a lot. I grew up in a desert, so I love all the rain. I can't get enough of it. Not yet. It's been 10 years. We'll see. Epilogue. Rosalind with topophilia and heresy. I could fall for this low church, foster forest, pollen in the eyes, rhyming lashes and skin, yellow Eucharist. Wild blueberries and huckleberries grow euphoric in low scrubs, subalpine, an august sacrament of self-exile, freed from tyranny of quotidian, a Sunday sabbatical. Your wrestlers' hands testify summer, wine-colored, our tongues and teeth and lips. I could fall for your crouch and grapple, amateur verse inked by your finger's stylus in the hollow of my left thigh. A sanguine, pagan scripture. Teach trees your text. Inscribe limerence in lieu of stone tablets. Valentines in roots and veins of my fleshy tables. Benches are for the blood-worn. Pews for the pewter-hearted. Here, we'll indoctrinate daughters in blue-domed sky. Seminary, their heaven hunger in the baptismal of a glacial river. We'll mollify here in pine light as sun buckles, sun buckets, through thick hedge, edge, along a cliff's hip to forage blue fruit we'll scoop into open mouths and pails, tree breath loopy, our hands stained with yes. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being, I've heard like little murmurs. That's so encouraging, right? The little, what are they called? Poetry moos, I think. Anyway, I love it. So I'm happy to take questions as long as they're not too scary.
Did your Shakespeare teacher a copy yet?
No. I need to, she retired, so I need to like, I can do it though. Thank you for that reminder. Yes. She loved the O poem. I gave that to her when it was published, and she put it on her door. That was really sweet, but she needs the book.
Your reading of that just made it come alive.
Oh, thank you.
It's amazing.
Oh, thank you. It's a fun one to read. You know how your own poems, like some of them just are funner to read than others, and that one. I like to read because of all the O's. Yeah, thank you.
You talked a little bit about rejection. Rejection over and over again. I admire your ability to stick with it. Do you have anything that you could advise someone about in terms of how to move through rejection toward your goals? And then also, have you ever submitted a poem and had someone ask you to change it?
So first one, rejection. For me, what has been enormously helpful is to have a writer's group of some kind that believes in my work and continues to have hope in my work when I have lost faith. So I have, after the MFA was over, I had nightmares about losing that community. And so I reached out to a couple of strong poets and I was like, do you want to form a writer's group? And they were both into it. And we've been together ever since. And then another writer's group emerged. So I'm in two, and they're my rocks. I think one of the folks in a poetry group with me, Jory Mickelson, talks about hope mirrors, and he got that from somebody else. But how we need to be hope mirrors for each other when we lose hope. That's my number one. keep a spreadsheet of all the rejections, know it's going to happen, like toughen up your skin, but then like have your people who will have your back. And then have I ever had an editor ask to change? Oh yeah. Yeah. Like, we like the first half of this poem. Can we just publish the first half? And I'm like, sure. Yes. Or if I feel strongly, I might push back or go back to my writers group and I'm like, hey, this editor wants to only publish half the poem. What do you think? And they'll, because sometimes when you're in the moment and judging by yourself, it can be really hard to see your work clearly. So having are you in that situation right now? Like an editor's like, hey, do you have some people that you can run it by?
I do, and I have great friends and family who are supporting me through it, and when I get up to read, I'll tell a little bit more about
Yeah.
in this process. But I really appreciate hearing your words about that whole part of it.
Yeah.
It's something that's new for me as a new poet.
Yeah. A rejection piece. 55, I've heard, 55 rejections for a book manuscript is actually a really low number from stories that I've gathered from other poets, especially if you go the contest route, like you're submitting to contests. It's very competitive. You can spend a lot of money trying to publish a manuscript. I've heard of poets just recuperating, like with the prize money, $1,000, whatever, just recuperating the amount that they have spent on contest fees. It's not uncommon, unfortunately. Yeah. So maybe find your people, find your press, find your, yeah.
I was curious about when it clicked for you. It seemed like Shakespeare, and I don't have a lot of knowledge of Shakespeare, but it seemed like you brought this connection of Shakespeare and your history of Mormonism and were able to find this line. And I'm kind of wondering what that process was like for you.
Yeah. So when I know that an MFA is not for everybody. It was really helpful for me, though. I had a really supportive faculty, supportive teachers at Western. They were really wonderful. But I know that some people have like kind of a terrible experience. But when I started the program, I had about 70 pages worth of poetry that I thought was going to be a book. And only 2 of those poems made it into this book, and both of those were revised. I forgot your question.
I'm still interested in your answer. I was just wondering what your experience was like, what your journey was like in terms of finding
Like
your,
bringing the okay,
Mormon history.
so starting like the MFA, all of those poems, the 70 pages worth of poems were just Shakespeare focused, and Bruce was kind of like, bring in the Mormon stuff. He was like, write a poem about Cordelia and as a polygamous wife. That's your angle. That is who you are. Bring yourself into it. And I was like, okay, this is weird. But then, yeah, so he kind of encouraged me in that direction. The MFA program at Western as well, you specialize in one kind of creative writing. So I chose poetry, but you are required to choose a second one. You have to do fiction or hybrid or creative nonfiction as well. So I chose creative nonfiction, and then that was more, that's more memoir-like, more essays. And so those pieces started coming out and turned into my first book, actually, which doesn't have Shakespeare in it, but more of the Mormon stuff. Yeah.
I'm more inclined to read Shakespeare after hearing your poems.
Oh, cool.
I want to know your take on their characters more than I want to actually.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
I think it might have been the first one you read, but it was like, if I could rewrite the plays, they'd have a happy ending. Desdemona would get her breath and so on. At the very end, there was a character that I think you said would grow up to be an adult.
Yes.
Who was that,
Yeah, so
and what play?
I was not familiar with this play until a few years ago. It's called I can't remember if it's The Winter's Tale or A Winter's Tale. I can never. The Winter's Tale. It's The Winter's Tale. And the character is, so there's the King Leontes, who's a tyrant, and his wife Hermione, the queen. She's fully pregnant with their second child, and he becomes stricken with morbid jealousy. He believes his wife has cheated on him, and that baby is not his, and he can't let go of it.
She becomes the statue that comes alive.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Who's the one that you mentioned in your poem?
Perdita is their daughter.
Perdita.
Perdita. I almost named the book Perdita, but but Bruce was like, "Don't do that." That's a little
So it's the daughter of the
esoteric.
Queen from Winter's Tale?
Yes, it's the princess. Oh, sorry. Perdita is their daughter, Leontes and Hermione's daughter. You thought Hermione came from Harry Potter,
I know.
but no. You're like, wait, what's Harry Potter doing in this?
Are you familiar with John DeLynn?
Yes, I am. I listen to a lot of the Mormon Stories podcasts on my way out. Yep, so did my husband. Yes. Are you? Do you listen to
yeah.
his podcast too?
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay, so one more. Do you know the story of Kolob and the Adam God doctrine?
Oh, it's been a while.
All right.
Yeah,
Just a
talk
quickie.
to Charles. A little bit. I'm rusty. Yeah, there's some strange things there. Yeah. Is this where? Yes, Jen.
Do you have a central theme for your next manuscript that you're working on?
Yeah, it is. It's actually my next manuscript was just named a finalist for the Light Scatter Press Prize and was an honorable mention for Green Linden's Wishing Jewel Prize, but it is all about the feminine divine. It's just a book of goddess poems. And I've been experimenting with a form I'm calling poembroidery, where I embroider onto poetry, like you do. So there are a lot of poembroideries in that book as well. Yeah, so hopefully in the next, I mean, like I said, it's only had 5 rejections so far, so it's got a ways to go. We'll see. Yeah, thank you. Oh, yeah.
You mentioned the safety of writing behind Shakespearean characters.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about writing the balance of rawness and honesty versus
Safety, right?
the bareness of publication?
Yeah. I mean, I stole this idea from another poet, and I can't remember who it was, but I remember reading their ruminations on persona poetry and how writing in character can just allow you. I mean, in a poem, there's already a speaker, right? It's not the poet, there's a speaker, but then you have like an added layer of sort of protection with a persona or a character that you're writing from. So that distance can allow you to get close to some hard emotional topics, some difficult psychological territory. But I hear you, sometimes you just want to be like, ugh. So that's what that book is. That's where a lot of the creative nonfiction, I mean, but it's still creative. You can still approach things sidewise. Yeah, I keep pointing at you, Jen. My first book that came out is a little, the speaker and myself are a little closer. But I don't know, I had nightmares before that book came out. I had this terrible nightmare that this polar bear was attacking my grandma, and it was my book. It was like the fear of publication and having that out there. I didn't have any nightmares with this one, but a polar bear attacked my grandma with that one, and I punched it in the face. Publication dreams are weird. Has anybody had a weird publication dream, like a publication terrors dream? No? Okay, well, maybe something to look forward to in time. Yeah, I don't know. Should we transition? Any other questions for me? Thank you so much for being such a generous audience. I appreciate it so much. Thanks for your questions.
That's where we end. Thank you so much, Dana. I actually really resonated with with the Juliet poem. I have 4 daughters, from 11 to 20 to 21. So, and 2 of my daughters are actually reading Shakespeare right now. One's wrestling through Hamlet, and one's wrestling through Romeo and Juliet. So, absolutely, I love your poetry. And for any of you who don't know, there's the Book of Will is playing at the Warehouse Theater Company right now.
They're doing it at Western as well.
Yes, and and my niece is in it, so, you know. Anyway, so little plug right there for that. But thank you so much, Dayna. Can we give her just one more round of applause? Thank you for coming all this way in the cold over the pass, and just really appreciate you being here. We will take a 10-minute break. There's books. Dayna has books for sale out here. The one that just came, like just hot off the press, is for sale out here. Also, the other one that I just held up, her previous book, and then she's got a smaller book. What would you call that? Like
It's a chapbook, but it's the last section of the new book. So
Okay.
if you like want to dive into this one, go for that. But the chapbook is just the last section, which came out first. And that can be a way to slowly get your way to a book.
Okay.
It's quite
So those are for sale out here, and Lauren can help you with that. And I'm sure Dayna would be very happy to sign those for you. Take a 10-minute break, grab some wine, grab more food if you'd like, use the restroom, and the sign-up sheet for open mic is out here too. Please, we'd love to hear your poems. And we'll meet back here in 10 minutes. All right.